This episode of the podcast is brought to you by our friends at Track Farms. I'm pretty rigid about my nighttime routines these days. You know, make sure I get good sleep, so I'm always doing the same kind of things, not watching the TV, getting in bed, getting the book going. But there's still some nights, you know what I mean, where you're just like sitting there, you're doing all the right things, and you're just a little anxious. You're just a little feeling the day still. You're just a little in tomorrow maybe, and you can't focus it on that book. You can't get yourself to sleep. That's what I've been doing a lot lately, and I've finally found the thing that I actually like that's working for me. If I'm getting in bed and I feel that way and I just want to go to sleep, I'll just go. I'll pop out, grab that CBD tincture that the guys sent me. A couple drops under the tongue is all it takes, and it really just, you know, I know that it's helping me physically, but I also know that the idea of having this thing that I can say, okay, I'm going to do this. Here's my nighttime medicine. You know what I mean? In a way, really helps put you in the headspace that it's like, okay, now I'm going to put all that behind me. So I like that little ritual. I've been enjoying that at night lately, helping me get some really good sleep. So I've talked about all the different things CBD can do. Check them out. Track Farms, track-farms.com/strangers, and that'll get you your 15% off when you use the code strangers at checkout. Go get yourself some good sleep. Hey everybody, welcome back to a brand new episode of the Strangers Worth Meeting podcast. I'm excited today. I'm still hanging out in Indiana. I'm outside, which always makes for a better podcast episode. And joining me is Nick Urankar, and he is a CrossFit athlete of amazing proportions, and I'm sure we're going to get into all that. Nick, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. I'm excited that I'm somebody who's exciting to sit down with.
I think it's cool, man. I mean, the most I know about CrossFit so far is probably what most people know, which is the Fittest on Earth documentaries. I mean, you've seen them on Netflix, and so you get this idea of exactly how it works, but not the mindset of what it really feels like to do that kind of stuff. Because it's nuts. I mean, you would know probably that from the outside, the rest of us looking at that stuff is like, that's insane. Like running, biking, and all that stuff in the level you guys do it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it doesn't feel insane until somebody asks you, what do you do?
Okay.
So trying to explain it to somebody who doesn't understand it is it's really hard. So you realize real quick that it's not as mainstream as it feels when you're inside of it, because the idea is like, when you're talking to somebody, it's like they can't fathom why you would do it.
Right. Which is probably kind of true for a lot of different like communities that you're in.
Correct.
Like, I mean, full-time traveling in an RV. I think that's normal, but then I go to people's houses like your house, and I'm like, oh, people live in houses, don't they?
Uh-huh.
Like in one place. And that's kind of a different...
Oh, yeah, when you're in your own bubble, it feels bigger than what it is till you get outside of it, for sure.
Right. But you have to get outside of it, too.
Oh, dude, you have to.
You can't get stuck.
No.
You're taking in only one version of information.
That's why one of the things I love is not talking about CrossFit. Because it's one of the hardest topics I feel for myself. If you look online, you probably wouldn't know it, but I'm an introvert. It just happens to be a platform that I can talk about myself comfortably. But if we're around each other and you asked me just point blank about what it is I do, I would not really have a good answer, because I get very uncomfortable. So I'd rather just be me around people who are just them, and that's the most comfortable place for me, rather than having an idea or, you know, you have a bubble, I have a bubble. I like to learn about your RVing and what it is to live how you live, because, man, that might be a cool experience to try one day and contact you and tell you how bad I am at it. And then you give me little tips on how to fix it, and I tell you how to kind of help yourself physically, and then you realize, like, man, we all have something to give, and that's the coolest thing.
People forget that you can be multifaceted as a person, too. Like, you don't just have to do one thing. But I think that's partially... I mean, that's the Instagram age too, though, right? Is you have to have a brand, you have to have some very specific things that you do, and don't break that bubble, because people will be upset also. Just stay in your lane with everything, which is a unique challenge.
Yeah, and that's like probably one of those things that I really could care less. If you look, there's obviously, I have a brand, and there's things that I'm selling or that I'm doing, but my biggest thing is really just gratitude. I don't have a gratitude journal. I don't say thank you to, like, oh, this is amazing or that, but realistically, like, the people, like the fact that, like, people follow me, that they want to talk to me, that they have insight, that they want to help. I'm just so appreciative to people, and I think when you do that, they allow you to veer off a little bit.
Yeah.
So I can get in tangents about finance or, camping. We like to camp, about, my wife buying things that I don't think we need, but she loves. And then ultimately when we get them, I'm like, hey, these are pretty cool.
Yeah.
Working out. But the reality is, like, I just think it's really cool to be able to step outside of where people think you should be. And I do that a lot on my platform, and people probably don't like it, but, I'm thankful that they get the choice to not have to.
This is your life.
Yeah.
This is your life. Do whatever you want.
Exactly.
And people are gonna have to deal with it. And at the end of the day, too, I mean, if anyone's Instagram feed was like completely democratic, if it was literally ruled by what people wanted to see, there'd be no consensus. There'd never be a consensus, and it wouldn't matter what you did. You would still have someone who's frustrated about that.
Oh,
about
correct.
How you act. Or
I always say it's best to have half the people like you and half the people hate you, and then the next thing you say, it should be flopped. Like flipped.
Yeah.
Like, that's how you keep an audience. Like,
Right.
it shouldn't be for a set person. It should just be for you.
Right.
And that's where I think when you really have a brand that fits you, it is how you live. It is who you are.
Right.
It is what you are. And when you step outside of it, people understand, like, oh man, like, that's him too.
Mm-hmm.
So it just might not be as big of a part of my life
Yeah.
or of a person's life. So
How do you get out of that bubble? You guys travel a lot?
I wish we traveled more.
Mm-hmm.
I think we get out of the bubble by, my wife is not like me. She's fit, healthy on that side, like the wellness side, but she's more about, she likes things to look nice. She likes to look nice. She works out and, does awesome, but she's not like me.
Mm-hmm.
So I think people try to put her inside of my bubble, and she's like, nope, get me out of there.
Right.
Like, I'm not. So she kind of pulls me along, keeps me humble, keeps me grounded, and allows me to be who I am, and understands that I'm not comfortable in certain situations. So she'll, when we're in a big group, I don't do well in big groups, and she can take the lead. So I mean, she compliments me, and I think for us, we get around people who are just them.
Mm-hmm.
We don't try to be around people who all they want to do is talk about what I do or what, so, it's hard to say because I'm so uncomfortable around people that I believe have an expectation of me.
Mm-hmm.
And those expectations really, like, I feel. So when you can just be genuine, and, I tell people all the time, you really don't care about what I do. And I don't really care about what you do. I care about who you are
Mm-hmm.
and what you're about. So when we can, get past, like, oh, what do you do for a living? And you just tell me, and then I tell you, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey man, do you like, fishing? It's like, actually, dude, I travel in an RV, but I don't like fishing. But did you know that you can do X, Y, Z? It's like, what? And then you get into the depth of it and start talking. You realize, like, man, I think the first question we always ask is, what do you do? And I think it's the question we really care the least about.
Mm-hmm. I like that perspective because, but at the same time, I have the ability and you have the ability to do a whole lot of different things with our time too. And that's something that we both have worked for because it's not handed to you. The ability to have a lot of different interests and a lot of different things you can go do and places to go and all those things. That's about whether or not you spend your life, to me, that's about whether or not you spend your life buying freedom or buying other things.
And that's exactly what you said right there, is like that freedom. It's different because when it comes to CrossFit, I look at it as like, but the reality is, if you want to talk about what it is I do,
Mm-hmm.
like, to my core, that's my choice. And that's not having to work a 9 to 5.
Right.
That's not having to do something because I have to provide for my family a way that I don't necessarily want to. So when I talk about that depth of what I do, like, it's something that I understand a lot of people don't have.
Right.
When you talk about, I can talk to somebody who works some corporate job that can't stand it, and they're more speaking in those terms. Whereas to me, I'm like, man, you want to know what I got to do today? Like,
I saw what you did yesterday. You were deadlifting a bunch of weight.
yeah. And again, that
was what you did during your work hours.
Like today, I think today I woke up like 6:30, answered a ton of emails, got my youngest daughter on her Zoom call at 8, made sure my other one was on her Zoom call at 8, went, answered some more emails, got some stuff going as I was trying to listen to her not listening to her Zoom call.
Yeah, we were talking about this whole school thing during COVID,
Oh, man.
which you've got the kids on the online classes is how we're
Yeah.
doing it, but it's just still kind of a mess. I can't believe that you have to be around there And actually, man, I don't know, I guess, exactly how it works. But as a kid, of course, both my parents worked. And so I needed a place to be during the day. That's always kind of been how it's worked, right? Is like, okay, if we need adults to be functioning members of society, generally, they're going to need to go someplace during the day or a number of places. And they can't always have the kids with them. But now you have to be there for the online classes with the little ones, the real little ones at least. And I can't imagine how people are making that work.
Well, fortunately for us, I mean, we both work from home,
Yeah.
or have the ability to work from home. And we actually structured it where I have them on Mondays and Thursdays. That's my job. I have to make sure that their schoolwork gets done, and she gets to go off and do her stuff.
Right.
And on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I get to do whatever I want to do. And actually, she got upset on Wednesday because I literally was like, I'm going to go on a run. And I came back and I made some food, and she was struggling. And I realized I can't step in because if I step in, I'm going to ruin this plan we have. So I have 2 days, she has 2 days, and then on Fridays we split. So I did the morning so that I could hop on here with you, and she's doing the afternoon stuff right now.
You guys are very organized in that way.
She's organized, and I just follow the directions.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's interesting to hear you explain it like that. I don't have any kids. And so Andrea and I, my wife, we can pretty much, we kind of make our schedules together. And she's the type of person, and I have the type of relationship we can pretty much spend 24/7 together and have been able to do that without any major issues for 7+ years now.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's been good. I like that version of life too, but it's totally different once you add kids in the mix.
Oh, dude. Yeah, I would say for the last while, my wife and I are the same. We're best friends.
Right.
We spend all of our time together, and really, I actually talked to my oldest daughter the other day, and she had asked me something about if she moved away, what would we do? And I said, well, just think about it. Who else does Dad spend time with? And she was like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, where do I go?
Right.
Who do I spend time with? She's like, well, you just stay with us. I'm like, yeah, how many friends do I just go and hang out with? And she's like, none. And I go, but I want to, and I choose to spend my time with you because I would have the most fun. But there's going to be one day where you might get to change who you spend your time with, and you may not spend your time with me. So I know that, and I would rather hang with you and get to know you and who you are than go and spend a Friday night with a friend that really it's just to get away from you. Like, I don't want to get away from you. And that's how I feel with my family all the time. So it can be tough because other people maybe want me to do stuff, but I just look at my kids and my wife and I'm like, why would I want to go anywhere else?
Yeah.
So I'm lucky in that sense. Like, I truly feel that way.
I'm the same way, but I'm also kind of a hermit to an extent. Like,
well, so am I.
Yeah. Like, I look at other things and I'm like, I don't really want to go do that. But like, I could take it to another level because the big one that we do is that we never eat at restaurants, which is kind of wild when you really put it together. So we cook every single meal for ourselves, unless it's like been a very, very long day. And so there will be times where we're like, have we done anything other than just sort of like being home, working, cooking, and then we also go out in nature quite a bit. But like, is there anything else that we actually have going on? And I just feel such little draw to go do anything else, honestly.
I feel very little draw, but I will say once I'm out doing it, I'm normally like, oh man, this is really cool. It's just that it's one of those things, like it might be 4 o'clock in the afternoon and I think about if I want to do something, and then what time would I get back? Would I have some downtime? It's like all these little things have to line up for me to say yes to that maybe hour.
Right.
It's like, oh, well, it's 30 minutes to get there. It might be an hour and a half. It might be 2 hours.
Yeah.
So I really like play in my head, like, how long do I have to just like snuggle with my kids? Literally. Just sit down, hang out with my kids.
Yeah. But that's because you care about every minute of your day.
Yeah.
You don't want anything else that you don't want to be doing happening in your day if you can control it.
You know the Enneagram?
Mine?
Yeah.
No, but what is yours?
9.
I don't know.
So 9 is basically, you can get it mixed up with all other numbers because I have so much empathy where I can put myself in your shoes and I feel like I'm a part of everything.
Sure.
And then there's one that's like super like aggressive, like an 8, and that's the only thing I'm completely like, I don't have that in my system. But my wife is an 8.
Okay.
And if you
attract, man.
Dude, and what's crazy is I've learned from her so much about, like, I don't know how to say no. I also can sit at my house and be totally fine, but somebody tell me like, hey, let's go do this thing, and I'm like, I don't really want to do it, but I'll go. And I go, and I forgot that I wanted to stay at my house.
Right.
And I've learned so much from my wife, and I think people actually confuse me for an 8 if you know the Enneagram. It's really cool. If you don't, I would check into it. But yeah, I'm very direct now, and that's not my personality. So because of her, I can now say no to people and just sit with my kids, whereas I used to always say yes.
Yeah.
Just because I felt like, oh, they probably need it.
Yeah, right. Well, you can't care for everyone's problems all the time. You have to care for your problems first, and not necessarily problems, but your concerns, the things that matter to you, your values.
Yeah.
That comes first, and you become a lot more comfortable saying no to other stuff.
Yeah,
and
and
you
I've
really
always
lock
struggled
that
with
in
that.
too.
I always struggle with that.
Mm-hmm.
I always would put other people and understand where they are. So it's been a new thing for me to lower the expectations that I allow other people to have on me and push the ones up I have on myself, where it's like, hey, these are the things, these are my non-negotiables, these are my values, and I can't let somebody else's step in just because I want to make them feel a little bit better.
Right.
So even though I have so much gratitude, like this, like I used to say no all the time to podcasts. I would get asked all the time. And now I'm like, why? Why would I say no to something where I can sit down and speak to an audience that maybe has never even heard, seen, or really care anything about me, and just be able to say like, hey, this is who I am.
I think that's what podcasts do a number of things, and it's why everybody's kind of jumping on them and they're becoming so huge, because there's no format for this. There's no format where someone could find things about you that are not highly related, like where we started talking about, to the one thing that people want to say, this is the one thing this guy does.
Yeah.
A podcast, when we're going to sit here for an hour plus, like that's what it is, that's the format, then you're going to learn something about that person that's going to go well beyond that. And then the fun thing for me as a host too is that I just get to go with whatever the person's feeling, and that could be what they're feeling that day or that minute or whatever. Right. And so today you're feeling reflective, and we're talking about some of this deeper stuff. We're talking about family, all that stuff. Where in a different format, if it was like this is strictly an interview, this is going to condense down into blurbs. You'd have to be so careful with everything you're saying because there's going to be no context around it. It's a less comfortable format doing it that way.
And I can literally talk about anything. So
tell me about your travel plans. You guys, you want to maybe do an Airstream.
Yeah,
I got to talk you out of an Airstream though a little bit.
So, well, it's, why an Airstream? My wife wants an Airstream because of how they look.
They look good.
So she really likes how they look. I don't want to do anything like that. Maybe rent one. We actually just got back. We traveled to Montana like last month. We actually were redoing our kitchen and our floors, and we thought we'd leave for 2 weeks, come back, and they'd be done. And that was the 4th, and it's still getting worked on.
Yeah,
4th of July, that is. And then, what are it, 20-something? So still not done. But yeah, so we actually traveled out to Montana. We went to Yellowstone for a couple days. I went to the South Dakotas, traveled around. I mean, we were all over the place for a couple weeks. So that was really cool.
How did you travel? Were you just staying at hotels?
So we drove straight through, and my wife's mom has an RV.
Okay.
Which makes me like, I don't want an RV.
What kind is it? Like a motorized one?
What is the truck one? Like one that looks like a truck in the front, but it's like
like a Class
30
C.
feet or something. It's huge.
Yeah.
And but we just drove we have a Suburban. We just drove it straight through.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of got to Sioux Falls, and I was like, do you want to keep going? And they were like, yeah. And we just went and stayed at on 4,000 acres of her uncle's land. It's insane.
Did you guys see a bunch of motorcycles out there? Because Sturgis wrapped up, right?
Yep. Well, we got there right before, I think, Sturgis. We did a ton, though. Tons of motorcycles, though, when we were going around. I'm like, man, you can just so beautiful. I mean, and when they call it Big Sky, it is. The sky just feels like it's 2/3 of everything.
Yeah.
Whereas here, I look around and it's like, you look and it's like the sky is maybe 25% of what you're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
Out there, it just feels like gigantic.
In Montana or in South Dakota?
Both.
Both.
Yeah, I would say Montana, really. I'd never been out there before.
Yeah.
I've never been out that far west.
I just went out there for the first time a few weeks ago, too. We stayed there, I don't know, like mid-July or something like that.
Where at?
No, it was like June. We stayed right outside Yellowstone, and the nice thing about RVing, we're getting into being able to boondock a little bit more, which is where you go without hookups.
Oh, yeah.
And so there's all sorts of public land that you can stay on for free, and they're popular spots too. There's 30, 40 different RVs out there, but you have a lot of space. It's not like it feels crowded at all. and you just pull up we just pulled up next to this river. I couldn't tell you what river it is. And we just no, it must be the Yellowstone River is what it is. And just camped out there for like 3 days, and you're completely unplugged, and it's just incredible.
Do we only tent camp? Because we did it one time because that was all that we had.
Mm-hmm.
And
I can't do that. I
the
can't sleep.
disconnecting that occurred, and the like waking up, and I would just put on like a big Carhartt suit because it was just cold, but whatever. I'm like, my wife hates it, but put this on and just start the fire and like heat up water and make coffee. And it takes like 2 hours, but man, like the reflection and the way I think a lot of times we don't get to actually chill out and really listen to ourselves. So like for me, a lot of times, almost every single day, I do something for 30 to 45 minutes where I can't have a distraction, whether it's like going biking or running, and I might listen to something, but I come up with so many ideas and so much stuff that I'm like notes afterwards, or I have to like speak into a camera
Right.
or into a mic just to like talk and like get my thoughts out.
Yeah, because we shut everything else
Oh
off.
man.
Something can start working again.
Oh, it's something I think everybody needs to figure out a way to do it. It doesn't have to be physical, but just to be able to let yourself think without having a distraction other than its own thoughts, right? You can distract yourself. That's fine.
Yeah.
You'll come out of it and be a little bit more clear.
Yeah, the pace of everything that we do, that is, I assume over time risen, but not in a linear way. Like I think the pace of things you have to do in your day has gone exponentially higher, especially as we reach a technology age like this. And it does feel different when you go out there. I always got obsessed with the book Robinson Crusoe. I don't know if you ever read it, but like.
No, I know. Wasn't there a movie?
Yeah. But I mean, everybody knows the story.
Oh yeah, no, I know the story.
You're shipwrecked, and it's just. But the thing that I feel like I don't get from that story that you totally get from the book is just how much goddamn time there is. Oh, yeah. He's like, what do I do with all this time? And he ends up like he's got herds of animals by the end, fenced areas. He's got a full on like agriculture setup because what else exactly is there to do?
And that's what's so crazy if you think about that, because I'm not sure how long he was there, or
I don't remember.
And not that even matters, but how much you can do. And I think one of like my favorite quotes is, we overestimate what we can do in 1 year and we underestimate what we can do in 10. So a lot of times we quit or we fail because we thought we were supposed to be somewhere in 6 months. When if we would have just looked out more like 10 years, like how much farther you can be. The compounding effect of what you can do over time is insane. And that's where I think for a lot of people, if we stop looking so short term, which where we are right now, it puts us in that mindset, right? Like, how many likes did I just get? Oh, I need to change that for tomorrow. It's like, well, what if we looked at it a year out?
Right.
And not about that, but like, what are we trying to cultivate? Like, what are we farming? What are we really trying to do? And I think for myself, like looking out 10 years, it's like, I can't even fathom what I can accomplish. And somebody who sits around for like 3 months on an island and then finally gets up and starts doing something, in 3 years, what does that island look like?
Right.
Yeah. But if they in 3 days quit, well, they're probably dead in 3 months.
Right.
Like
it's a lot of pressure to change things immediately.
Yeah.
When it's like, yeah, you can, but it's really small incremental change.
Yep.
That's what really changes someone's life. What do you apply that mindset to? Because I'm with you. That's what I push myself to do a lot, is to really look at like, all right, this day is I can't even keep up with the pace of this day, but what is this actually going to look like in a year, in 2 years? Like thinking long term like that, but it's one of the hardest things. But what do you actually use that the most for?
Well, I think a lot of it is I look at it, the eighth wonder of the world, right? Compounding interest. So I think the compounding effect happens in reverse. It happens forwards and backwards, right? You go into a lot of debt with money, and you're going to be paying compounding effects of that backwards. Same thing forwards. So with time, I think of it as, if I do one little thing today and tomorrow and the next day, that little thing in 3 years becomes a giant thing. I literally think of it. If we work every single day, 365 days a year, for 3 years, that's over 1,000 days. On that 1,001 day, the one thing you do that day is only because of the 1,000 other days. So you can't just start at 1,001. That thing you did on that 1,001st day was only possible because of 1,000 other small things. So the compounding effect of that 1,001 is exponential. It's not answering an email. It's answering an email that sells $10,000 something because on day one you created a product and gave it away.
Right.
But you can't sell a $10,000 thing on day 1001 until you give the product away or until you did that first thing. So I think a lot of times we step in and try to start at 1001 rather than just saying, I'm going to do this one thing, but I'm not doing it one time.
Right.
And I think a lot of times we do one thing one time, it doesn't work. We do another thing one time, and all we're doing is restarting.
Right.
So it's that commitment to evolution. Like, we're going to evolve through this. Like, we're going to obviously change directions, but it doesn't mean we quit and restart. And that's the part where I think what I do on a daily basis, the little things, are only because of all the other little things.
Right.
So to somebody else, they'd be like, well, how do I get to where you are? Well, it's not by doing the thing I did today. It's about doing what I did. It's kind of like getting in shape. You can't wait to become the person you want. You have to become the person that person is. Like, I can't be a 300-pound guy unless I act like a 300-pound guy acts. Like, I have to do the things, and I say that like arbitrarily, like, but ultimately I'd have to start eating a ton more. I can't just be like, well, when I get to 300 pounds, I'll start doing what they do.
Right.
You have to start being that person.
Right.
And that's what I attribute. Who do I want to be in 10 years rather than, well, this is what I want today.
Right. That's why you look at the backstory too. So like any podcaster who's obsessed with Joe Rogan and starts their own podcast.
Really?
Someone
People listen to him?
I love listening to Joe Rogan, man. That is my favorite podcast. But so for someone who looks at that and is like, man, that's the life. That's how I look at it. That's what I'd love to do. I'd love to have an excuse to just do this all day long, and with just advancing levels of cooler and cooler and cooler people. That'd be amazing.
Thanks. I'm like the beginning.
Nah,
I'm
man.
kidding. I'm
because
totally
you've
kidding,
missed the days I've put into this point.
Oh,
which
dude,
has been a hustle to hear.
Trust me, I know.
But you know, you're great, but you're no Elon Musk, all right? No
Not
one's
yet.
an Elon Musk.
Not
but
yet.
you probably will be. You probably will be designing
I'm going to
solar
the
batteries,
core,
going to,
though. I'm going to the core of
fucking
the
moon.
Earth.
You're going down,
Going
instead
down
of up?
instead of up, yeah.
Which
is actually up.
Why are you going down? Are you just being facetious?
No, I'm just being facetious.
Okay, all right. Because I was like, what is this?
No, yeah. He's
We're
like,
digging?
well, let's
We're
go.
doing
Let's
something?
go. No.
Tunnels is the future, man. He's going down too. Elon Musk
crazy.
is doing tunnels for traffic in LA. Like,
No,
that's
dude,
his
that's
whole thing.
insane.
Yeah. Scares the shit out of me.
Oh.
He talks about how they move under the earth like a
Man.
snake's body kind of.
Yeah.
That scares me so. And he's like, oh yeah, we'll pipe in air, or maybe they'll pipe out air.
But that's that
It's
part
like
of
a
like
vacuum.
we expect to just know what the heck they're talking about without
Right.
knowing why. Like, there's so much more that
Yeah.
goes into stuff. It's like,
And he's just that small piece of the top.
oh
too.
yeah.
He's-
Well, he has somebody
that
coming to
iceberg.
him telling him.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, that's cool. Okay.
Right.
I'm gonna tell everybody else.
Right, which is a good policy. But
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
what was my point? Oh, but this is where you start. This is where you start. Is okay. If one day I'd like to say this is my job.
Yep.
It's my job, and I don't have to do other things to support this habit. Then,
Yeah.
where did Joe Rogan start? And what he started with was like 2 microphones and just went for it.
Yeah, and you have to treat it like you're talking to 100 million people.
right every time
Yes.
you put that commitment into it. Show up. I'm ready to go.
And then one day when you talk to 100 million people, you don't have to talk any different.
Right. You're still you.
Yeah, like that,
So you-
and that's the part I think it's like somebody's like, oh, it's just no one's gonna listen to this today, so I'm gonna get off early.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't even matter.
Right.
Like, I'm gonna be monotone. I'm not gonna care. Like, no, like if you truly want that, then treat it like you're that person
Yeah.
already.
But that's why looking at people's backstories are so good. I think that's why it's looking at the backstory of a successful person. That's how you can reverse engineer how to get
Yeah,
there.
dude.
That's
one of my favorite quotes. You know, the Steve Jobs when he gave a speech to Stanford.
I don't know. it.
So it's the only way that you can tell where a person is, how a person got where they are, is to connect the dots backwards.
Yeah.
So the only way, and that's what I tell everybody a lot of times, is when I meet somebody, because I get people all the time that tell me, hey, I want to do what you do, or I want to do this or that. How do I do it? And I say, like, I can connect the dots backwards right now where you are and tell you where you're going.
Right.
The only way to change that is to make a change.
Right.
So, you know, right now I could give you my whole backstory as honest as possible, and you could say, dang, I see why you're there. And you can then say, well, based off of where you came from and where you are, I can probably guess where you're going.
Right.
And the only way is connecting those dots backwards. It's reverse engineering it. And that's what I love, is being able to take somebody and be like, hey, you say you want this, but this is actually where you're going.
Right. But that's the power that we have as people too, is that we can change it.
Exactly.
And we can change it at surprising times. You find out that people really didn't start their like. I'm thinking about A-listers now because that's where I go. Is
Yeah.
like, all right, inspirational people, okay, and when exactly did they start making a change in their life? The really obvious example is someone like David Goggins, of course,
Yep.
who
Oh yeah.
said, I'm done doing that now.
Yep.
And that was a decision. And he talks about that it wasn't just one decision, it was like 10 decisions
Correct.
of failing and then failing again and then trying and failing again. But there is a change point. There's a point where you can say, this is what I actually want to
that's
do.
the fun part too, is because you see that you can then look back and be like, dang, they're starting at step 4, whereas like I'd be at 1 or someone would be at 7, because then you take all the things they did and it might align actually pretty well with the direction they're going,
Mm-hmm.
or they might literally completely change directions and go and start at 0. And you're
Right.
like, why? And people will ask, like, why are you doing that? Like you have no right. You don't have the ability. You don't have the education. You don't have any of these things. And the person's like, but it's what I want.
Yeah. I don't think I've talked to a single person on this podcast who hasn't done that at some point. And that's the thing is, lucky for me, you need to hang around with people who think like that, who
Oh, yeah.
think like, okay,
Oh,
no,
yeah.
I can change anything about my circumstance. And I can do that at any point, and that's how I'm going to move forward. And to me, that's what probably gives the show its name and makes them a stranger that's worth meeting.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's if someone has control over their own life or not.
Well,
And you can see it.
I harp this on my kids and everybody I talk to. It's, you have to take responsibility.
No one's going to do it.
You have
in
to.
your
We
stead.
all, and you can learn a lot about a person by finding out how they speak. You know, if they're blaming, and I tell people all the time, if, you know, again, I talk to a lot of people, so when they'll a lot of times people come to me with arguments and they say we or they or everyone, but it's just them talking.
Mm-hmm.
So I say, who are these we and they and everyone? Because I feel this way. And it sounds to me like you feel this way. But when we take everyone else out of the equation and we only speak about ourselves, we realize real quick we don't have a lot of ground to stand on.
Mm-hmm.
So if I make an excuse and say like, well, just so you know, I've heard from people that this is how you have to do it. So like, you know, it sucks for me. It's like, wait, so you're believing who? Who are these people? Where are you reading this? Where's, and listen to people speak. And a lot of times they put themselves in groups rather than just stating, I don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Or I feel like I would fail.
Yeah. Well, I'm imagining, this is just a guess,
Yeah.
that a lot of the people that you're talking to in those situations, you're talking about fitness-related topics and wellness-related topics. That's what I'm mostly picturing, and I feel like that is the area where you get the most excuses and the most blaming, because that's just one of the hardest things to do, because you have to make that decision every single day, and it's not an easy one to go out in the cold and lug the kettlebell around for a little bit, or like whatever it is. I feel like that is one of those places where it's going to be most revealing.
Yeah, it's that. So, and that's what's kind of interesting about me. It always starts there.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, like working with a lot of people, you're a psychologist as well.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of it comes down to talk a lot about relationships, talk a lot about money, talk a lot about, you know, jobs. What did you want? So it gets into all these things where people be like, well, I don't have any money because of this and that. And you can look and be like, hey, I can actually see what you're doing. You have plenty. You've just chosen to do other things with it than what you're saying you wish you'd be doing.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, you're telling me that people like you and do the things you do have to do this. When I'm telling you, no, they don't, you just may look a little bit different than they look. And that's totally fine.
There's a correlation to me between hardship and someone who seeks hardship and achieving whatever it is that someone's looking to achieve and living the way they say that they want to live. Because it's never easy to do exactly what you want to do and have that level of control over your life. I'm just like you. I feel really grateful.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really feel supremely happy with the things I get to do day to day. And I also know that was mostly because, and now I'm just pumping my own ego here, but because it was decisions to chase hardship. It was decisions to say like, okay, we're going to go for it.
When you probably had hardships that you you wish you wouldn't have had. Like,
Yeah.
it's not, you know, and you go through. I mean, most people know, like for myself, I shouldn't even say that. Probably most people don't. Like, I grew up in like low income housing. Like, my parents separated. My mom worked. I got dropped off at school. I don't even think they have this anymore. It was a thing called Kid Stop. And I got dropped off at 5 to 5:30 a.m. I was the first kid, me, my brother, and my sister, the first kids that got dropped off at our school. School didn't start till like 8. We'd be there for 2.5 hours. We'd go to Kids Stop till 5 or 5:30 in the afternoon. School ended at 3, and they would bus us to Boys and Girls Club. And I'd spend the entire day at Boys and Girls Club till 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. Mom would pick us up because she worked all day. They found out she wasn't making any money. They let her work as much as she wanted, and they paid her for it. And my dad wasn't there. And you go through all that. But my mentality was, I get to just have fun. I didn't know. It's just like everything. We look at people sometimes and we think, oh my gosh, like they have to go through that. Well, that's all I knew.
Mm-hmm.
I look at my kids right now and I've realized, and I tell them all the time, the hardest part about being a parent in my position is I don't have to say no.
Yeah.
I don't have to say no. And that's hard when as a parent or as a person, when you don't have to say no, you then look and you're like, wait a minute, but just like I didn't know any different, when I was told no, it was because there was no yes. And I look at my kids and I'm like, well, when I say no, they know there's a yes. They don't know any different. They don't know that hardship. Yeah. To them, hardship is actually getting the no.
Yeah.
So we look around, I think, and we place blame on all these areas when the reality is we only know what we know. Like, it's not as bad until we're told it's bad.
Yeah. It's generational, though.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I see it, because there's like some cliche that hard times build strong men who build good times, which makes for soft men or women. Whatever that is, if you're exposed to hardship and you're exposed to the no, you will become stronger for it, likely. Mm-hmm. And then you will build what you have built and give that to your kids. And you have to be like, wait, but I don't want you guys to be softer for that. So you have to have like discipline to create fake hardship sometimes. Dude, in a way. It's not going to be the same hardship.
It's one of those things most people who, I mean, you've probably heard it all the time. People who say, I want my kids to have better than what I have. And I don't look at it that way. I look at it as I want my kids to see what I have and to realize that they can have it.
Yeah.
And that's happiness. That's choice. That's them understanding that, like, I don't want to just be Jade and Natalie are my two girls. I don't want to be Jade and Natalie's dad. I don't want them to go talk to their friends and be like, oh, yeah, that's Jade and Natalie's dad. I want my kids to be like, oh, you want to know about my dad? This is my dad. And they tell about who I am, not that I'm just their dad. I looked at my mom and I was like, well, that's my mom. And I know that that's not all that she was, but to me, that's what she was. Mm-hmm. My kids, if you ask them right now, like, who is our dad, they'd go into like all these stories of things that I've wanted to do and maybe failed at, and they might make fun of me, or in things that like I've accomplished, or that and then they'd be like, and he's like the best dad,
right? Because they see that you react to situations.
Yeah, like we have lives. I've always wanted my kids to know, like, just like you are a person and you have feelings and you have all this to live for, like, so do I.
Right.
And just like I want them to see, like, no matter where you are in life, because to them, I'm probably some ancient guy, is you can do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean that like, because you really can't do anything. You can. I think that's also stated sometimes. It's like, I want to play in the NBA, and people will be like, yeah, but you're not 6'10", you can't shoot, you're this and that. And it's like, yeah, you're right, but I can still play basketball.
Right.
And I might not make a living playing basketball, but I can still play every day. Whereas some people will look at that and be like, dang, I'm never going to the NBA. I'm going to go this direction. I'm going to quit basketball.
Right. Well, but that's because you just applied that status filter on it.
Correct.
Which is totally different than the act itself.
Yeah.
You shouldn't, the goal shouldn't be, I want to be in this league. I want to be in the NBA. It should be, like you're saying, I want to play basketball at an elite level or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's like you're probably not making $100 million a year doing podcasts, but you're a podcaster.
I wish. No.
Yeah, I know, but it might happen and it might not, but realistically.
No, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, but
that's how it's going to go.
Yeah, so, but if it did, fantastic. It wouldn't if you stopped.
Right.
And that's where I think for myself, it's more of like I want people to be able to live a life that instead of saying like, I want somebody to have better than me, to just be like, I want them to see that I have a life, like that I enjoy, regardless if I sit at home all day or if I go out every single night or I do whatever it is. If the people around you can say like, man, that's a happy guy. Like, that to me is what I want. I want people to say like, wow, he's grateful for everything he has. He's super happy and humble. He loves. And, you can tell me I'm doing something right or wrong, but you can also look at me and be like, man, regardless, he's living.
Yeah, and no one's ever going to have anything on you also if you are in charge of your own attitude and the way you view the world.
They can think, whatever.
Yeah, think what you need to think.
Yeah,
But
and that I think comes a lot of like having a decent sized following on social media, and having a lot of opinions come at you and realizing like, hey, that's cool. And you know what? Like if it's negative, like, man, I'm sorry you feel that way. I wish you were happier.
do you read them all?
Oh yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
See,
I comment to almost every single person.
Really?
Respond to everybody.
What's the reason that you do that?
I'm grateful.
Mm-hmm.
Like seriously, like when I say like I am grateful, like it is a great, like the fact that like you contacted me to do this podcast. You didn't have to contact me. I don't know how you found me. I don't know. You don't even know what it is I do. So did you Google the area to find out like, hey, is there anybody really, really cool to check out?
That's what I do.
Yeah. So, but that I look at it and I think, man, you wrote to me. Why wouldn't I respond?
Sure.
Or you said something bad to me. Why wouldn't I ask why?
Yeah.
A lot of times, like, I don't get in arguments with people. Like, if you say, like, oh, you're on steroids or, oh, you're this and that, I'll just ask why. Why do you think that?
Yeah.
And
that accusation in particular, I think, is because people know they can't do it. They don't have it in them.
well, and
I'll say it. You won't say it because you're a nice guy.
no, but I think a lot of times because they don't and they can't. And again, they do that one step in different directions every day, hoping that they get to that spot, but it's never going to happen that way. So instead, they're like, well, I haven't done it, and it's been 2 years of me trying 50 different things, so this guy obviously is cheating.
Right.
Or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And, everyone who's kind of in my boat be like, oh, it's flattering. And I'm like, I don't really feel like it's flattering. I feel more that it's a jealousy. And it is. I mean, you can say, like, but the reality is if you're telling somebody that they can't do something, it's normally because you wish you could be doing it.
Yeah.
So I understand that, and I'm like, man, I wish that person would just be happy with who they are and be happy with where I am and who I am, rather than have to tell me why I'm a certain way when I don't know who you are.
Yeah. Well, we're all stumbling around all the time, and in your stumbling, it's easier to not stop and find your balance again. It's easier to try to tear down someone else's thing while you're stumbling around, because it's just going to make you feel like you've got some stability. Like, well, at least I'm not doing that. And we use judgment like that. I use judgment like that all the time. I'm not a perfect person.
Yeah.
I do that exact thing. I don't say it out loud because I was raised a certain way that's like, okay, you need to be polite.
Yeah.
Like, you need to not be going around saying rude things to people. That's just rule number one. Really simple. Keep it to yourself. But it doesn't mean I don't think like that.
Yeah.
And you just, I guess, have to work
And we
on
all,
it.
and
I'll
we
let you know
all,
if I
yeah,
ever get there.
we all think things that, I had somebody tell me one time, they said, you, just because your first thought when a girl walks by is you see her boobs, doesn't mean that, like, you're a horrible guy. Like, let's say you're married and you look at a girl's boobs. Oh my gosh, like, it's the second, third, fourth, and fifth thoughts
Yeah, sure.
that matter. Like, the first instinct is instinct,
Yeah.
right? Like, the first thought doesn't necessarily define your character.
Yeah.
It's what comes after.
Right.
So to think like, oh, that guy's probably cheating is like, yeah, that's just your feelings of like, dang, like, I wish that was me, or I wish like maybe I hadn't let myself go, or, when you're talking about physical. But then after that, you can be like, but you know what? Like, that's awesome. Like, I respect that.
Yeah.
Like, I respect that regardless of what my actual thoughts are. Like, man, like, that's pretty cool. I don't believe it. Or like, I think he's cheating, or whatever you want to say. But to just understand, like, man, that's cool.
But it's also that prime thing of those. It's from the, like, 7 Habits book. Is the thing I always think of is that circle of concern and circle of influence, which is a really simple concept. I didn't finish that book, by the way. I got to like 2.
I think everybody starts it like 8 times. And then,
it's not really fair. He says he talks for a very long time at the beginning about how he doesn't want you to read it in one sitting. He wants you to, like, take in a chapter and then practice for like a few years and then come back. So I get that. It's a reference book to, like, trying to just feel a little better. But the fact is that when people are using the time they have to cut down other people, it's not it's because they feel like they can get power outside of the circle that they
Mhm.
can actually control. So unless that dude is on the board of CrossFit in charge of drug testing, he's probably got no business
Here's
to
the
be
thing.
trying to control that thing.
I got in a book. The director of the CrossFit Games wrote and said that I got hurt in 2017, my pec, and I didn't get to finish an event, which then basically like they had a minimum work expectation. He said that I faked an injury because I was on performance enhancing drugs.
Oh, fun.
So I actually was there, and this book came out. I guess he was like documenting, and they tested me actually like the next day. And I was like, did they test me? Because what? I was like, what the heck? I've probably been tested 24 times, at least, in the last like 4 years for blood tests, urine, you name it. And actually, what's crazy is the next year I qualified again, and kind of like stuck it to him a little bit.
Sure.
And he came up to me and said, this is at like the CrossFit Games. Like this is like the guy that like he's the director of the games.
Right.
And he said, we're good, right? He like pulled me aside, like literally asked me to come step aside. We went out into a hallway, and he's like, we're good, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, we're not good.
We're not good, bro.
What
Was
do you
that an
mean?
apology? What are you talking about?
I was like, you need to make a public apology.
Yeah.
And he ended up making like a post of me and him like laughing that he had somebody take a picture of and posted it, and people were just kind of like, oh, I guess this is his way of apologizing. But it wasn't like I needed him to do anything. It was just more or less like, dude, I help represent this, like this sport. I'm at the top of it, and you're trying to say, because everybody else will say like, oh, but he's really strong. But dude, I'm 195 pounds. I'm 5'10". I look like I'm 225 pounds on social media. I mean, you probably met me and you're like, dang, this guy's smaller than what he looked.
I actually saw your stats on the CrossFit site, so I knew what to expect.
Okay.
I know how old you are. I know how much you weigh. It's a weird thing to know about someone, by the way.
Well, I mean, I guess in what I do.
In your sport, it's kind of like,
yeah, so people look at me and they're like, dang, you're a lot smaller than I thought you were. And I'm like, well, it's because I move well, therefore I can move weight well.
Right.
I mean, there are 18-year-old kids that are a lot stronger than me. But inside of what we do, I'm very, very strong. So it's easy to point your finger at a strong guy, whereas I'm like, it doesn't make any sense for somebody to take drugs to get strong in our sport. It would make sense for somebody to take something to increase their cardiovascular, like to increase their oxygen, how they utilize oxygen better, because lifting is like 5% of what we do.
Yeah, it's not like you're breaking records on those lifts.
Dude,
it's not really about that. It's about the endurance.
Yeah, like I just happen to be strong and I like lifting, so I'm just stronger than other guys. But either way.
Is there a big height variation in that sport, by the way? Like I would picture that sport would need like weight divisions, like fighting.
So because I would say that you're probably going to see most guys are going to be like 5'9", 190 pounds. Because that's a size where you can be really strong and really fast and be able to move for a long time. Whereas you get a guy who's 6'5", 210 pounds, probably be able to move some weight. It's take a little bit longer to do certain things because of that height. Probably not going to have quite the endurance. They have to be a little bit smaller, which would make them weaker. A short guy doesn't have enough mass to move.
Right.
So I think you find that like that sweet spot in like that 5'9", 185, 190. And the crazy thing about what we do is that some years you might see the weight and height go up because of the type of workouts.
That's interesting.
And then sometimes you might see, the height go up and the weight go down because of the workouts. So sometimes it's, we'll always say like, oh, it's really big in gymnastics, or it's big in weight lifting, or it's just like all conditioning. So based on what it is, the cool part is that you always see a lot of the same guys at the top. Right. So you're like, dang, even though it was pushed that way, it's still the same guys. Even though it was over there, it was still the same guys. But you're going to get 20 to 40% variance of new people coming in because maybe they were what we call a specialist. They were better at that type of stuff. And then as soon as the next year it skews a different direction, those guys are gone.
Right. How are they doing it in 2020? I think I saw that there was going to be some remote component of it.
They've changed it about 20 times in the last 5 months. But right now it's there's 30 guys and 30 women. They're just doing the top out of the open, no other divisions. And it's going to be online, I think in September, and then the top 5 who qualify out of that are going to go in person.
Okay.
So
trying to limit the numbers a bit.
Yeah, and that'll be I think in October.
Where's it going to be at?
In call it the Ranch, which I'm not. I think outside Santa Cruz somewhere.
Okay.
But honestly, it's in California.
You gonna be there?
Big state. No.
Why not?
No. So I competed last year in the Masters division, which is 35. So I'm 36 right now, and I won that. The year before I went individual. This year they did the Open in October, and I just did it, which is basically how you qualify. And I got 100th in the world. I was just like, dude, this is way too soon. We normally do it in March. When this all happened, they're only taking the top 30. So anybody outside of that, you don't get to go. You qualify through events. So I was going to try to qualify through an event, which no events are happening. And then they cut all the other stuff out. So basically, I'm just kind of like here, working out for fun.
Working out.
And honestly, we're just working
Chill
on
till next
business
year.
stuff.
Yeah.
And
So you've got a couple gyms here in Indiana.
Yep.
And you've also got the Zeus method.
Zeus method, yep.
Right. Which is that online education mostly?
Yep. So that's
coaching.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot of different programs on that, but that's my business that does online programming. So for anybody from working out at home to wanting to be elite in CrossFit or just like look really good and fit, we have all that. And then I've got nutrition stuff on the side, and then a lot of sponsorships. So I do a lot of things online for companies. I'm trying to steer myself away from that because I think there's a lot of unauthentic or non-organic type stuff that it's obvious to a person like, oh, he's putting that out there because somebody told him to, and they're paying him.
Like what kind of stuff?
Yeah, like supplements.
Okay.
Which I'm not a big supplement guy. I mean, I do have a company that I rep because they've got good stuff. They've got greens, and I take collagen. Whey just kind of makes me feel bloated. So I take collagen and greens. But otherwise, it'll be like, a shirt company or shorts, and they want you to wear their stuff. And they're like, but when you wear it, do this. So now I've actually decided I'm creating my own apparel line because I like to be more authentic. And I like working with companies that are more like, hey, just do you and kind of fit us in if we fit in. And if we don't, then obviously we aren't a good fit.
Right.
And I like that. So for me to be able to create my own stuff is something that I'm kind of going into. I'll have a big launch like September 1st of a whole apparel line for my company, Zeus.
That's so it'll be within the Zeus stuff.
Yep.
It's not going to be a different brand.
No, it'll be inside the
plug in
brand.
people.
We're going to have probably a separate company, so we will probably market it out to everybody because I think it's just cool stuff. But yeah, it'll still be inside that umbrella.
That's cool. So you'll be then getting to wear your own stuff.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about any
Don't
of
have
that.
to worry about No.
You can pay other people to wear your shirts and be like, hey, but
yeah.
do it like this.
Hopefully people just want to like wear it. But yeah, no.
I'm just teasing, man.
No. So there's so, I mean, that's the crazy part. Like it's kind of like everything. It's just your imagination.
Yeah, I get that. So for the last, I guess really all day yesterday, Andrew and I moved into our new RV because we're doing work on this Wild Hickson's brand I've been telling people about. That's working with this company East to West, which is right in Elkhart.
Oh yeah,
it's like brand new
I mean,
plant
I think
they've
every
got out there.
plant's out there in Elkhart.
Yeah,
RV.
it's RV capital of the world, man.
Yeah.
It's for real out there. You can see and it's not just seeing the RV manufacturers either. It's that you'll drive by buildings that make RV parts.
Oh yeah,
Like Furion, who makes all the sound
Lippert.
bars and things like that. Sure. I think even Dometic is out there and all that stuff. Just all
everybody
those
out
companies.
here works for an RV company.
Yeah. It's a cool place though. I've been having fun out here. But we've been moving into that RV, and I'm in the same boat as you, where that's going to be really my first foray into representing a brand in this way. And luckily, I've happened upon the people I really like. Like we bought one of their RVs originally. That was we knew we wanted to go for that one, and we bought that like just over a year ago, and it just so happened that they wanted to start working with people to take their RVs out and do things with them. So we had no idea. I had no angle on that at all.
Yeah.
And we liked our RV, and we were taking pictures of it, and they're like, hey, you're taking good pictures.
And that's how things happen. And
Yeah.
the only reason that it happened is because you were taking pictures of doing what you're doing.
Right.
So like for somebody to be like, wait a minute, so how do I go get an RV?
Yeah.
It's like, well, you have to actually be really into it and be, artistic, create good content, do something that makes somebody else say like, hey, they could help us.
Right.
It's a win-win.
Yeah. And it's just like, it's like everything we've talked about, which is that it didn't just happen in a day.
Exactly.
Like,
But you can,
Yeah.
I think a lot of times we fabricate how things actually happen. Like you could be like, oh my gosh, you'll never guess. Randomly, this happened, and now I've got all this stuff, and you're like, wait, I want that. Can you put in a good word for me? And you're like, they only said one person. Sorry,
Right.
maybe next year.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you're like, you were a niche that they were looking for, who happened to be doing it a way that they liked.
Right.
And
Yeah. If you're not playing the lottery all the time,
Yeah,
and you're actually
never gonna
working on
win.
building something, building some equity in yourself in some way, even if you don't know how that's going to pan out, because you mostly don't, and then opportunities
Dude,
literally
I
happen.
used Instagram for 4 years before I ever made $1. And what I mean by actually use it for 4 years, one day I made a post and people liked it. And when I say they liked it, it was like, wow, like they really like this. Like I don't even know who they are. And more people started coming. So I just said, I'm going to commit to myself to make one post every day for a year. And by the year, it was like, oh, wow, like there's more and more people. And I just kind of continued that. And that's all I've ever done is I've just taken a little video of myself doing something and I post it.
Right.
Or a picture.
Yeah.
And I've done that every single day. And after 4 years, somebody was like, hey, would you like to rep us? And I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden people started asking for stuff. And I was like, oh, wait, people actually, are interested in things that I can offer.
Yeah. It's
So-
a weird model. And I also think people act like selling influence. We act like that is some type of random event, but
Yeah.
it's not, because there is a lot of work that goes into it. There's your 4 years of doing it. I've certainly been trying on Instagram, and Andrew's been trying on his way. We've been working on our photography skills, on our posting skills, on a lot of different things. It didn't just happen, and we're not. It's not like we are naturally popular people, because we're just not. You know?
Well, and Instagram's a lot different right now in social media because the algorithms. I mean, when I started when I think it was 2013, I really started just like posting, and it was all where people just tagged people. So I'd get like one person tagging 8 people, and it'd be like 50 comments of just hundreds of people getting tagged, and then all
Right.
those hundreds of people would follow. That doesn't happen anymore. Now they've got the Explore, and they've changed all these algorithms. So I think a lot of it is to realize you have to be giving. You
Yeah.
have to be giving. Like, you can't just say, I'm going to be an influence because I do something that people think is cool.
Right.
It's like, no, you have to, like, give. Like, if you look at mine, my stuff has changed a lot. Again, I'm super grateful for everybody, so I realize that I want to help in some way. So if you look, a lot of it is quotes that then I take and I use through my eyes. So, like, if I say, like, hey, don't quit on whatever. I mean, that's not a quote, but don't. Anyway, I'll then say, hey, I used to be this way and think this way and
Yeah.
act this way. And what I used to do to help myself through this is to think like this
Right.
and do these little habits. Like, what is it that you do that can help make you not quit?
Right. So you're giving perspective on top of
always.
something someone's already heard.
I think a lot of times people just say like a quote and they'll be like, oh yeah, I made someone feel good. And it's like, no, they want to know how did that affect you?
Right.
Like, we're not all perfect. And I think I realized after a while that all I was doing was putting out stuff like, hey, look at me. I didn't feel like that. I was putting out a picture of me lifting something, being like, I just lifted this. And to me, it was like, gosh, I'm proud.
Right.
And I realized that I wasn't actually giving anything. And it took me a long time. And now, if you literally look back, you'll say like, oh, wow. I want everyone at some point to be able to say, like, oh, I got something. Like, I took something away. Now, if you don't read it and you don't, dive in, that's different. But for anybody who's actually following along and paying attention, I want everyone to say, like, man, you need to go check him out, because, like, there's going to be something that he's going to say or do that's going to be able to help you.
Right.
And that's, like, 100%. Like, 100%. That's how I feel. And I want people to feel that. And I think they do. I mean, like I said, I comment on everybody. I
can't
write
review
back.
that.
Yeah, I write back. Go, like,
How many
seriously.
comments do you get on like a post?
Like right now, probably 50 to 100.
That'd take forever, man.
But it doesn't. If you literally think, like, if somebody that gives you like a strong thing, I'll just shoot them back like pound. Like a pound, like a
Right.
fist.
That's true.
Yeah. So like, if somebody asks a question, I answer it. Like, example, I have these little knee things, and people are like, "Oh, what are those knee straps for?" And a guy just recently, I could pretty much tell you every comment people say. A guy asked me, like, why do you wear those straps? I was always wondering, is it because the weight's too heavy and it hurts your knees? And I was like, no, I think they look cool. Like, they don't do anything. They're just cloth. Like,
Right.
literally, it's just cloth.
Yeah.
I think it looks cool.
Makes me feel like a gladiator.
Yeah, like
and then I lift
we
better.
like we all want to feel and like we all want to feel good, and that just makes you feel better. Like,
Yeah.
but here's the thing: I could easily say like, oh man, like, they really protect my knees and makes you 10% stronger. I would go buy them because it's a company that sponsors me. But the reality is, I think they look cool.
Well, I appreciate you for being authentic with your social media because for every one of you, there's 100 other people doing the exact opposite, and that's not how they think about it. We're treading on what is my actual day job, which I also don't talk about that much. I don't talk about it on this podcast.
I want to know.
Podcast where I do it.
Seriously,
well,
like, even though I said I don't care in the beginning, at this point I want to know.
I own a digital marketing agency, and
sweet.
so part of what we do traveling is we travel around to all our different clients and we create content with them all over the country.
Why weren't we creating content?
Why what?
Why weren't we creating content? Why didn't I know this? He's like, dang, I didn't.
This is what I do.
Think about it.
This is what I do all day, man.
Yeah, true.
I do it.
True.
It has become my hobby and my life, and now it's my RV, and so I can't even go home and sit and watch a movie without being like, should we post about how we're watching a movie on this nice TV here? Yeah, no, it's the whole freaking package now. But the thing for me is I'll get clients who will come in. First of all, they ask me, how long does it take to work? Which I understand. I know you need to know that, and when you ask me that, and I tell people that you will start seeing an uptick in their business within like 3 to 6 months. When we're putting out regular content, for sure, you're going to see it. But when do you hit that point where you become the biggest business in your industry, in your area? Everybody knows who you are. Nah, man, that's not 3 to 6 months. And people don't have the patience to wait that out.
That's what I'm saying. Like they overestimate what they can do in short term.
Yeah. Our best clients, the ones who are like, no, you can't come back and film more with us right now because we're too overflowed with clients. Like we can't do filming days, anything. Like we're so busy. It's like, yeah, good, because we've been doing that for 3-4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like it doesn't start to hit unless you wait that out. But when it does hit, and that's just the commitment to making things. If you're gonna make things, it's not gonna happen day one. It doesn't matter if you're making like jewelry on Etsy. It does not matter. You need to be doing it consistently for a really long time because that kind of thing doesn't kick in overnight unless we're talking about random viral situations, and those are a flash in the pan that disappear too.
Yeah, and the thing is everyone tries to replicate it and repeat it, and like if you try, it definitely ain't going to happen.
Right. So the people who have the most success with making content are the ones that actually have had the patience to wait that out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that they're not seeing the results in 3 to 6 months, like I promised, because I'm not a liar. It's that the ones that really want to be like top of their game, there's no other place in the state that competes with what I do, which mostly for us is like various like health professionals.
Yeah.
There's no one that competes with me in the state. It's like, yeah, because you made it. Like we did this long enough. You waited it out. You have to. And that's hard for people.
Well, that's like that another thing people will say, like let's say you're 55 and you want to get a degree, and you're like, dang, but like I'm 55. It's gonna be 4 years.
Right.
Well, okay. Well, you're gonna be 59. So you can either be 59 without a degree or 59 with a degree.
Yeah. There's no time to start like right now.
No, and it doesn't matter. Like you are where you are, and you're going wherever you want to go. So, like for me, I look at it and I'm like, man, at 50, gosh, I wonder what I can accomplish if I'm continuing to work how I'm working. Because I know if I'm not, I'll just be 50 in a very similar spot, which is fine. There's nothing.
What is it you want to do at 50? What are you doing now?
Well, I would say before 50, I want to say by so I'm 36 right now. By 45, I want to never have to worry about having to do anything ever again, which is basically how I am right now. I tell everybody I'm pretty much retired because I choose what I do every day. It just happens to be that I get to make money doing a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
But my biggest thing is financial freedom.
Sure.
And having... I always tell people I want to not have money dictate how I have to make a decision. I think a lot of people make decisions based off of money. And if we can take money out of the equation, things are a lot easier. Not like, oh, I have millions and millions of dollars, like, and I can do whatever I want. It's more about, imagine if you didn't have to worry about the money aspect.
Right.
What would your life look like?
Right.
And if somebody answers it different than what it is right now, then it's like, well, then get a handle on that, and let's start going towards that direction of what you want your life to actually look like. Because we live for money, I would rather not have to do that.
Yeah.
So I do the things more so thinking of it like literally. Imagine, like, think of this. I'm 36. If at 45 in 9 years, I never had to worry about doing a thing in my life, would it be worth it? But how many people are willing to put forth the effort for 9 years?
But
To most people, when they hear that, though, they think, oh, that's
Yeah.
such a short time.
Yeah.
That's such a short at 45, it's like, yeah, but you don't want to do a thing today, and instead you'll do the same thing until you're 65
Yeah.
and you're 32. So for 33 years, you're willing to do the same thing because you don't think today you can do one thing.
Yeah. But I also don't think that it takes 9 years, like in your case. I don't think that
no.
it takes 9 years to start paying off. Like, so I got in that whole world of financial independence.
Oh,
and all that
dude,
great
we could go. That's a
stuff.
whole. We can go. Yeah.
I mean, how could I not? I live in an RV, okay?
Yeah.
Like, I get it.
Yeah.
And almost immediately learned that just by applying a few things, I had so much more time and so much more control over my life. Read some great books with some awesome advice, and what it turned out to be is that not only is that my plan too, to not have to work some exact thing until 65, and then it's not the old school dream. I can start changing my lifestyle to have more time now. So yeah, I live in an RV and I own way less stuff than anybody. Like, come at me, I own way less stuff than you.
You got
know?
me beat.
For sure. Well, you have to own some things, man. Like, I could get rid of my gym and trade it in for like one kettlebell. I know that's not a reality for you, but that's how, and you have kids too, so you got to own a lot more stuff with kids. But and as soon as we started doing that, I had more time on my hands and more ability to have more control. I cook all the time, and that's not just it's lucky because I love cooking.
That's my wife.
But I also don't have to go out to restaurants, so I'm not spending massive amounts of money. By the way, I love the Midwest, man. Meals out here cost so nothing.
I don't know any different.
Oh, it's awesome, man. I mean, back when we lived in Denver.
Oh, I can't imagine out there. Yeah.
Sure. Or we were just in Seattle, and it was like, oh, yeah, okay, dinner. Yeah, I get it. It's $100 if you're going to dinner, and even if you're eating pretty moderately.
Yeah.
And that's nuts to me. So I miss the Midwest, where it's like, get a pizza, and it's like $20.
I've lived, like, our family budget is very, very low. Like, very low. Like, we don't carry debt, don't have it. So, like, for me, I could talk about money stuff forever.
I love money stuff.
The 45, like being 45, that was just something I created a long time ago.
Yeah.
So, I tell my wife all the time, I'm like, we could be done. It's just one of those where at 45, I want to literally be like, should we just stop?
Did you guys do all the math and get your number?
So
that's the big thing, right? Is to
the number.
You don't have to tell me the number, but is that how you did it?
No. Mine was just because I've been, I think when I was like 18, I went out and I bought life insurance. I started a 529 account for kids, and people were like, are you expecting? Do you have any kids? I'm like, nope. They're like, you just get married, planning on? I'm like, nope, got nothing. They're like, why are you doing this?
Education one, right?
Yeah. I was like, what? They're like, why are you doing this? And I'm like, because I know one day I'm going to have kids, just like I know one day, like, I'll need insurance. So
Right.
I basically set everything up at a really young age and just started like hyper saving for no other reason other than I just didn't want to have a life that I had growing up.
Okay.
And
did you get good advice? Were you reading?
No, I just literally thought, okay, as a adult who needs to be setting themselves up for success, these are some of the high level basic things I think you need. Like, you need to spend less than you make. You need to make sure that your family's taken care of if something happens to you. You need to, make sure you're preparing for your kids if there's anything you want. Whereas now I look at college and stuff and I think like, no, I want you to create your own business. I want you to do something that lights you up. I don't care if you go to school.
Yeah,
like,
well, there may not be school as we know
exactly.
it anymore, too.
So there's all that. And the number stuff for me is more at 45, the number that we have will be so big that we really won't be able to screw it up. And I think a lot of people they're like, oh, it's $1.632 million and 36 cents. That's what we need to make X amount of money. It's like, for me, I'm like, well, if I'm doing what I'm doing, it's going to put us here. I'm guessing we're going to be higher, and I'm guessing that I'm going to continue to do certain things so that by 45, if I decided to just live my life,
kick back
under or just travel or do crazy stuff that like people always say they're going to do when they're 65, but then they can't, or they end up going to 75. Like, I basically want the option to live an unbelievable life earlier rather than later.
Yeah.
And I've realized that by setting that, I'm living that life right now.
Yeah. You have to live that life right now, by the way. Because
Exactly.
you could be driving, I could be taking my motorcycle home, and that's it.
Yeah.
Story done.
Yeah.
So if I deferred happiness, that's I think the expression
Yep.
that a lot of people use, to that point, what was I doing? And people who die young too, or not just die young. It doesn't have to be die young, but it could be like, think about someone who's retiring right now, and they've like been all excited because they've got a place down in Florida. They got a favorite restaurant down there. All their friends are retiring with them to this one neighborhood, whatever. It's done. It's over. That restaurant's closed.
Yep.
You can't go out. Don't go to Florida. And
It's a lot easier than people think to just, I mean, number one, be happy. But number two, like, just spend less than you make. Like, don't get caught up in what everybody else is doing. I mean, my wife loves nice things, but she understands, like, it's not getting by. So she can find things that maybe at you name it, like $400, she'll find it for like $112.
mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what? And she goes, well, I know you would never let me get that. I'm like, well, I would have. And I'm very lenient. Like,
Right, yeah.
we have set systems.
Yeah,
like,
you're not a dictator around here.
yeah, no. Like, we have a low budget. Like, we do what we call a 50% rule. So anytime we have a set number that we know we're going to make every single month, and anything above that, 50% gets saved, 50% goes into the new, like, basically we can increase our lifestyle if we want, or we save it. So anything above a certain number, we save half of it, and we do whatever we want with the other half.
That's a pretty good saving rate. A lot of people just try to go for like 30% or 20% or something like that, and that's hard still.
Yeah.
For a lot of people.
So we have our saving rate, and then above that, anything we make,
Right.
we do that additionally, which for me, I'm like, well, hopefully we don't got to spend any of it. We can just save it all.
Yeah.
But obviously, I know I have businesses, so I'll reinvest, in that. I don't count that as a savings rate. I just think of that as, again, in 4 years, what might that look like?
Yeah.
Rather than, oh, well, hopefully next month it's better. Like, no. Like, I understand things are slow, but, man, sometimes it's really cool to look. Like, imagine you have a company that makes, let's just say, $4,000 a month, and you increase it $100 a month for, like, 10 years. It's pretty insane. Like,
I can't do math in my head.
yeah, but you'd be looking at, you'd be making a lot more money.
Yeah.
So, but it's $100. And what's crazy is I've done where that's happened. Like, it's like, I only went up $100 in 3 months, and then the next month, because of all those little things,
Yeah.
it jumps $3,000 or $4,000.
Yeah.
And you're like, dang, how'd that happen?
Yeah.
And then you look back and you're like, well, I know how it happened. It happened because I didn't stop when I didn't think it was happening. And then it just took that little nudge that you wouldn't have had you just quit on it.
Right. You're big into the compounding effect of effort.
Dude, so much. That is literally like, I tell everybody, I only lift what I lift because I lifted.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just step up. Like, I'll have people, I'll do, example, we call like an EMOM, where like I'll do like 325-pound clean and jerk every minute on the minute for 20 minutes. If you came over and you did, let's say, 95 pounds every minute on the minute for 20 minutes, what people then say is, we did the same workout. We did the same work, right? We could walk away and be like, yeah, we both did a 20-minute EMOM of one clean and jerk. Now, people might be like, what the heck's a clean and jerk? But what I then say is, yeah, but now take 325 times 20, and then take your 95 times 20. Now look at the pounds I lifted compared to you.
Right.
You, to then be able to do what I just did, it will take you how many years? We don't even know. 10? 15?
You keep adding on.
But then in those 10 or 15, I'm going to be another 30
Yeah.
pounds more, which then is going to actually be that much longer for you to get to.
Right.
So we say we do a lot of the same things, but in reality, the reason I get to do that is because I already put my 10 years in.
Yeah.
My 15, my 20. So, but you can bring yourself to that level and say like, oh yeah, but look, we did this. It's like, yeah, but it's only because of those 15 years of nonstop. Like, I always tell people too, like, some people will say, they go 6 years, you name it, you put a label on any of this, 6 years of being one way and realizing like, dang, I should change my ways.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go 1 month hyper focused on changing, and then they stop and they go back 6 years doing that one thing, but they're like, they look at me and they're like, man, I did that for a month, but like, how do you look like you look?
Right.
And the difference is because I go 6 months, I go 6 years.
Yeah.
Hyper, take 1 month off, and then they say, how come you can take a month off and you still look like that?
Right.
But then I go right 6 years into it again. So a lot of times we like to take things and twist them, but the reality is if you flip it the opposite way that you're actually thinking, you'll see a completely different picture. Like, for me to work as hard as I work and take some time off is not bad.
Yeah. Well, and I also think that's a good point you make. And we've been talking so much about some highly competitive topics of like things that are like, we talk about them in ways that it makes someone feel like really probably pumped up. And like, there's a lot of like, effort and work and all these things. It's like, yeah, those things are good. But I also think people miss out on a lot of what we're actually saying is that simple, tiny changes. Dude. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about like you have to be the perfect person tomorrow to achieve your goal and someone's going to get there faster if you're not. That's not even what we're saying at all. No. What we're saying is like apply small ounces of willpower in certain areas and be smart about those, and that's how you're going to get to where you're going, and just do it over and over again.
Dude, that's like, have you ever read Atomic Habits?
No.
Dude, fantastic book. Recommend to every single person.
Done.
But one of the things in Atomic Habits is obviously like we have our habits. And a lot of them we don't even know. So like you can habit stack. It's like one of the things that I did that I don't really have to do much anymore is, what they say, read 10 pages a day.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's like a huge thing. So set a book on your pillow. Like as simple as that is, set a book on your pillow every single night. So you wake up, you make your bed, you set your book on the pillow. Mm-hmm. You come home and it's a reminder of like, dang, I said I was going to read 10 pages. Right before bed or whenever you want to do it. If you want to drink water before you have coffee, set a cup of water right in front of the coffee pot.
Yeah.
Like it's setting yourself up for success. The success doesn't have to be big.
Yeah.
But that little thing will change the trajectory of your life. Like 20 ounces of water when you wake up is gigantic. But we don't do it because we don't think about it till it's lunch. We're like, dang, this is the first water I had.
Right.
But you set a cup. That's simple. Set a cup in front of the coffee maker.
Yeah. And I like confronting myself with my own bullshit too. Because I'm like, I'm going to do that for sure. And then it's like what you said, if that book is on the pillow and you have to make that decision right then, you're like, am I full of shit?
Yes.
Or am I going to do this thing?
You're like, you bastard, you're not going to do it.
Yeah. I think it's one of the things I like the most about owning very few things is that I actually see them more often. I think people forget about the things they buy and they're like, I'm going to do this, and then it goes away. First of all, now I take a very long time to decide if I'm going to buy something or not. Like I'll labor over that decision. I'll probably feel guilty about it if I do buy it. Whatever. Yeah, it's a real commitment.
Yeah.
But then also I have so few things that now I see everything every single day. So I'm going to see that. I'm going to see my starter in the fridge and be like, all right, it's time to get back on some sourdough again. I'm going to see my bow in the corner that I just bought, and I'm going to be like, yeah, let's go shoot. Like because I don't have as many things that I can pull my time away from.
I think everything is so simple that we actually try to complicate it to make it easier for us not to have to like do it. And what you're saying is like that's super simple.
Yeah.
That's all. Everything. I think every single thing in life is simple. It's just that we don't want it that bad. So because of that, we're like, well, I'm gonna blame this, and this. And it's like, no, just admit like you don't want it. That's fine. You don't have to.
And it is a lot of habit breaking too, though, because dude, it's like the phone. That's what it is. I was just thinking about that, where it's not really going to matter to someone if they're like, I have a commitment to do this, I'm going to get into this hobby, whatever. They're probably going to end the night watching Netflix and scrolling on their phone, no matter what. And you have to break those ones first, and they're the hardest ones to break, or else you literally won't be doing anything else.
Correct, and that's where Atomic Habits is huge, because we live most of our life through just the daily habits that we've created. So yeah, you have to break them, and there are lots of different ways to. That habit stacking, environmental stuff plays big roles in it. So I think for myself, a lot of it is just it's setting habits that align with my goals.
Yeah, I'm really into this right now, particularly because I'm reading this old book called Lila. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. This is the dude who wrote Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. His name is Robert Persig. And he wrote a second book that most people don't know about called Lila. And he gets into two things that happen in the world, which is dynamic quality and static quality. Mm-hmm. The idea is that everything is one of those two things essentially. And dynamic quality would be exciting, change, challenge, whatever. And then static quality is just going to be the things that we're doing over and over again, that we're programmed, whatever. So at least that's how I'm kind of applying it in this conversation, how I'm thinking about it. Obviously, he's sort of was an actual genius and has a lot of things he thinks about it. But it's bringing that to mind so much because that static quality, that thing, those habits, the same things you want to do every single day. What we have to do is access some type of dynamic quality to say, and that's what we're able to do as humans. It's amazing that we have that ability, because most animals don't. And we're like, no, I can change that. I can do something different. And I don't think you can do that without also screwing with the static quality. I think you have to do you have to trick yourself.
I mean, there's some people that like
just want to go back to it.
Like for me, I take certain vitamins every single morning, like D3 and whatnot, but my wife likes to put them in a cupboard. Well, I don't take them when they're in the cupboard. I have to have them, like literally, before I go to bed, I set water by, we have like a little water thing. I set a cup right there.
Mm-hmm.
I set my vitamins by the coffee maker, and I literally wake up, fill up the water bottle, drink it till there's about a quarter left, and then I walk over and I take the vitamins, drink the rest of the water with the vitamins, and then I start the coffee pot.
You take vitamins on an empty stomach?
Yeah.
That doesn't kill you?
But because you're taking synthetic vitamins.
Oh,
so there's a difference. Yeah, you take whole food vitamins, you don't have to worry about it. It's food, so it doesn't affect your stomach. If you take anything that affects your stomach or says take with food, it's synthetic and it's crap. So everything you take should never have to be taken with food.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Oh,
now, the only time it should have to be taken with food is if like something digests better.
In fat, right?
Yeah, or like, you need vitamin C in order to have this potassium, or you know what I mean? Like, so you may have to like stack certain vitamins to make sure that they absorb properly. But pretty much anything you take, it should not need to be taken with anything, because it should be just natural. Yeah, dude, you just brought yourself out there.
Yeah, but you're going to make me spend more money. I'm going to have to get better vitamins. It's the one thing that I already take too many of, and I'm like, well, at least I can do it kind of
So I don't take that many vitamins. I take D3.
I take that.
I take, a lot of times fish oil, but I don't take it all the time.
Do you take krill oil ever?
No, I've taken krill oil.
That's the one I got into.
Yeah, so like,
on the difference there.
Dude, there's so much, dude. You can be sold on anything.
Oh yeah. I take garlic. That's a big one for me.
Garlic? I really
buy into garlic.
My wife's like, "Are you almost done?"
Yeah. Do you have to go to your meeting? I don't even know what time it is. I didn't bring my
watch. It's
8:30. 8:30.
2:30. Wow. See, that just shows you where fortunately, they had the clock in front of my face too when I said that.
We can wrap on it, but I just have my mind blown, so I need a second to reel from that one. Because now I feel like a fool.
No, I mean, that's what's so cool, man. Like, here's the last thing I guess I could say is like, what I've realized is that we all search like for school or information. We look around all over the place, but like, dude, it's right in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
Like every single person has something of value. You just have to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's free. Like it's free. You want to move faster in life? Ask somebody for help. Not somebody who isn't going that direction, but ask somebody who literally is there. They're available. You can message them on social media and they'll respond to you.
Yeah.
Like, it is that simple. You can get somewhere so much faster if you just ask somebody for some help, because they will give it. Like, it's free. And here's the thing. It's not one person. You could ask 100 people. And if one of them answers you, like, awesome. But what I will say, I get people who ask me questions all the time, and I give them an answer, and they tell me why I'm wrong. Don't ask that way.
Yeah.
Like, if you go into something where you're fishing for an answer, you're not going to get that answer.
Yeah.
Because they're in a spot where you're not.
Bring your honesty.
Yep.
You've
got to be humble. You've got to understand there are a lot of ways to do one thing, so that's why you've got to ask a lot of people. But it's free information that you would never get. I mean, sitting down and just chatting, like, we didn't know what we were going to get out of this conversation.
I never do.
No. But you got something that you're going to take away, and it might pop up in 5 years where you're like, oh, dang, I remember when I was talking with that weird guy in Granger, like in the Midwest.
It's probably
he said this thing. Yeah.
Spot on.
Trust me, yeah. So, but that's where I look at stuff, and I think, like, man, I tell people all the time, I'm like, there's the most free information that you can find is inside somebody else's head. And you have your own too, so give it away. Like, give it away. Like, it's there. Because you may not be able to give it tomorrow. Once you're gone, it's gone with you.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's being grateful right there.
Dude.
It's giving back.
Totally.
I love it. Thank you so much for being on the show, Nick.
Hey, man, I appreciate you coming on.
Pleasure. For everyone, we'll snap a quick pic before we take off here. So go find that. Where can people find you on Instagram?
Instagram, Nick Urankar. Zeus Method. I mean, Facebook.
Check out those new clothes too. I'm gonna be looking at those.
Yeah, dude. They'll be coming
Excited
out
about that.
September 1st.
Cool. And as always, you can find me at THicksonLife on Instagram or Twitter if you prefer. I'm so tired of Twitter. I might just stop it.
Yeah, I think that's how everybody's with Facebook or Twitter.
I'm going Instagram, I think. That's going to be the main vibe for me.
Dude, there'll be something else. I do TikTok now.
That's about to be gone too. Banned.
Yeah.
We keep getting into new topics. All right, I have to close this podcast, and you have other things to do with your life. So go find me at THicksonLife as usual. Thank you very much to my sponsor, Track Farms, for their awesome CBD products that they are sending me. And go to track-farms.com/strangers to get your 15% off. Thanks everybody for listening. We will see you as always on the next episode.